If you're a Gundam fan, or a mecha fan, or even just a general anime fan, you've probably either been told someone else, or got unreasonably angry when you see someone else get told that Gundam is kind of confusing to get into. This discourse is as old as time and entirely just exists as people stating the point and no one actually fixing that point. So that's what this video is about. Going through each show and saying if it's a good starting point, and if not, what you should watch before. I'm not going to mention any of the SD Gundams. They're basically a separate thing, or they're Looney Tunes-esque, like parodies featuring the characters. If you're getting into Gundam, you're presumably not getting into it for SDs. So yeah, this won't be an exhaustive list, but it will cover what many people consider the primary works. First up is the first one, Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979. This is of course a great place to start, especially if you're going into the franchise to go through the entire franchise and not just for one show. Or if you're looking at the franchise for its historical impact. It's also a great place to start if you want to get into the works of Yoshiyuki Tomino, the director of the show. The only real problem some people might have with the show is that it's definitely dated in some ways. The animation is of its time, but that doesn't really mean it's bad, even though it can be janky at points. The storytelling very much feels like it's both trying to be episodic and trying to tell a serialized story. But if you can get past these elements, it's an amazing starting point. If you're a fan of English dubs, this also has a great one, which most English dubbed Gundam shows do have. Would you recommend to fans of old anime as a whole, Metal Gear Solid and Space Battleship Yamato? A quick side note. The Mobile Suit Gundam movies, don't start with these. They're not that great, in my opinion. You can start with them if you really can't deal with the entire show, but it's a worse experience than the show. Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Don't start here. You can probably deal with it and intuit your way through, but it's a direct sequel to the original show and builds off of it thematically and plot-wise. It has a really good dub, though, so if you're going into it, you can go into it dubbed. Mobile Suit Gundam Double Zeta. Same as the previous, but you also should watch Zeta before it. Builds even more directly off its prequel, it's airing a week after the previous show ending, and it picks up directly after that ending. This is the first show without a dub. Mobile Suit Gundam, Char's Counterattack. This is one of the first endings of the original Gundam continuity. Builds off the previous 3 shows and pays off plot lines laid out in them. If you hear someone say you can watch it directly after the original show, they're lame. Don't do that. Has a really good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. Spin-off of the Universal Century works, going back to the time of the first show. This is the first show not directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino. It works well as a starting point if you're fine with vague spoilers for the original, especially if you enjoy shorter OVA works. It has a great dub. Highly recommended if you love Christmas. Mobile Suit Gundam F91 takes place after CCA but can work as a standalone. Doesn't feature any returning characters and tells a standalone story, but you should watch the previous works to get the best experience. Has a pretty good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 Stardust Memories. This is another spin-off taking place between the original show and Zeta. This should be watched, I would say at the very least, after the original show, but it expects you to have knowledge of Zeta. Has a dub. Mobile Suit Victory Gundam. Similar scenario to F91. It builds off previous works thematically more than plot-wise. Features no returning characters. Best with previous knowledge, but does work without it. Doesn't have a dub. Mobile Fighter G Gundam. The first non-universal Senshi work. Also builds off previous works in some way with their themes, but doesn't connect at all plot-wise. Works well if you're a fan of shonen battle works and over-the-top action. Has a pretty good dub. Would recommend to fans of Gurren Lagann, any well-known Shonen Jump fighting manga, and the Brave franchise. New mobile report, Gundam Wing. This is also another standalone universe. It works well enough standalone that millions of American 90s kids got into it here. It's a very wacky, over-the-top ride that takes itself more seriously than G while still making you feel like you're going insane watching it. Has a dub that is very iconic. Would recommend to fans of Inuyasha, overly serious YouTube reviewer skits, and other poorly aged things. Mobile Suit Gundam, the 08th Mobile Suit Team. Another spin-off that takes place during the original show. Works well if you like smaller scale stories and Romeo and Juliet plots. Has a great dub. After War, Gundam X. Standalone universe, but one that plays much more closely with the ideas of the Universal Senshi works in a way that makes the show not work super well as a standalone. Universal Senshi works released up to this point are recommended. Does not have a dub. Mobile Suit Gundam Wing, Endless Waltz. Direct sequel to Gundam Wing that exists in both movie and OVA format. Shouldn't be watched without Wing, is dubbed. Turn A Gundam. Tomino's directorial return that attempts to bring together all previous Gundam works. Should be held back until at least all previous UC works are watched for best experience. Isn't dubbed. Mobile Suit Gundam Seed. Another standalone universe. Plays with ideas from the original show in a way that still works standalone. One was intended as a Gundam for a new generation at the time and worked great for that. If you're a fan of early 2000s shows and early Digipaint art style, this is a good starting point for you. Has two dubs, one old one from around when it was releasing, and one new one. I personally enjoy both. Would recommend to fans of Fafnir, DeviantArt, and PS1 games that were overly hated on release. Mobile Suit Gundam MS Igloo. This is a series of 3 OVA series happening during the time of the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Works as a standalone, also probably isn't the best starting point. Isn't dubbed. Mobile Suit Gundam Seed Destiny, sequel to the first Seed, shouldn't be watched without it, as it builds off the plot and themes. Has a dub, but I'm unsure if they have ye-dubbed it like they did the original Seed. Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, a new translation. Compilation movies of Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. Changes a lot of the original to the point where it doesn't work as a replacement, but I personally think it's a good companion piece. Does not have a dub. Mobile Suit Gundam 00. Another new universe. Works great as a standalone work and a starting point. Plays off ideas of other works, but not in a way that needs context. Great if you're a fan of mid to late 2000s anime or Fujoshi. has a good dub. Would you recommend to fans of Code Geass, the PlayStation 2, and Death Note? Mobile Suit Gundam 00, Awakening of the Trailblazer. Jack's sequel movie to 00 should not be experienced without the original. Good ending to the series. Has a good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn. Return to the Universal Century timeline. Takes place soon after Char's counterattack, builds off all previous UC works, and should be watched with knowledge of them. But if you're feeling really wacky, you could start with it and intuit the backstory. Watch the OVAs, not the TV cut. Has a great dub featuring Yari Lowenthal, famous dub actor that you know. Would recommend to fans of Nazi Germany and unnecessary rape backstories. Mobile Suit Gundam Age. Another new universe, this time featuring the same problem that Gundam X had, where it plays off many ideas and concepts of the UC series. Could be watched as a starting point, but is best with previous knowledge. Has a dub, but probably the worst one of the franchise. Gundam Build Fighters. Another new universe. This time, instead of focusing on real mecha, it focuses on the plastic model kits of those robots. Could work as a starting point, especially if you're a big fan of toy anime like Beyblade, but makes many in-jokes and references to previous works. These same ideas apply to all Build Fighters works or Build Divers works. Has a good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam G no Reconquista. Another directorial return of Yoshiyuki Tomino. This time, taking place either before or after Tornado Gundam, depending on what you believe. Thematically follows up on all his previous Gundam works, but could theoretically be a starting point. But not a recommended one. Doesn't have a dub. Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin. Prequel to the original Gundam. It can work as a starting point, but both feels very different compared to the work it's a prequel to, and spoils some reveals in the show. Has a good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Another new universe. Works as a starting point, but loses some impact due to playing off some ideas of what Gundam is. Probably one of the best starting points if you're a big fan of modern 2010s anime. Has a great dub. Would recommend to fans of 86, Fast and the Furious, and gay sex. Mobile Suit Gundam Narrative. A direct sequel to Gundam Unicorn. Should not be watched without context of the UC Gundam works. Has a good dub. Is going to be made into a TV show soon. We'll see if that's a better or worse version. Would recommend to fans of Five Nights at Freddy's. Mobile.
Oh wait, look out! Oh shit, it's the birdie from Five Nights at Freddy's. What?
Gundam Hathaway. GX sequel to Char's Counterattack, based on an old Tomino novel. Spoils much of CCA and should not be watched without context. Has a good dub. Mobile Suit Gundam Kukuro's Daon's Island. Remake of a single episode of the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Could be used as a starting point, but probably should not be, as it spoils some of the original and doesn't work as a replacement. Mobile Suit Gundam Witch from Mercury. The current newest show in another new universe. Is intended to be and works as a starting point. Quite good if you're a fan of Yari. He's currently being dubbed. Would recommend to a fan of Utena, any of those shows that are very clearly inspired by Utena, and Blobos. So that's an overview of the primary Gundam works and how they work as starting points. I would say, in conclusion, basically all of these shows that aren't direct sequels work well as starting points if you're fine missing some in-jokes and allusions to previous works. Many of these shows have statements from the creative team saying they were intended as an introductory point for new fans because of course they are. Why would these companies want their shows to only be appealing to longtime fans?